And
Which one?
wash and dry it.
Okay, so
All
I
right.
do this and it's
Do
not
we-
high enough. So I
Are
do
we
this
all ready
Just
for this?
stand up. Stand up.
Okay, I would
I'll
like
reach down there
to
and pull
call this meeting to order, and I would ask everybody to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is the camera on?
Okay, this
Yeah, how long
is
has it been
the
going?
board meeting of CCWD on Wednesday, October the 9th. Would you, Stacy, would you please call the roll?
Director Underwood?
Here.
Director Radaman?
Here.
Dr. Cicada?
Here.
President Thomas?
I am here.
And Director Davidson is absent.
Okay. This is item number 2, public comment, and at this time, members of the public may address the board on non-agendized items only. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for future consideration, and any item brought up cannot be discussed by the board, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone wishing to make any public comments? If not, let's move on to item number 3, the consent agenda of 3A, 3B, and 3C, and 3D.
I'd like to pull 3A.
And I'd like to pull 3C.
Okay, 3A and 3C are pulled. Do we have a
I'd
motion?
like to make a motion for approving 3B and 3D.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 3B and 3D, and a second, so would you please poll the board?
Director Underwood?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
Dr. Cicada? Yes. And President Thomas?
Yes. Okay, let's go first to item 3A. This is a question about the minutes of our September 25th meeting.
Okay, on page 2 of the minutes, about halfway down, it says the meeting was adjourned into closed session at approximately 1:10. Those present were board members, and it lists the board members, and it also lists Jeff Davidson as going into the meeting, and he was absent that whole day.
He just never
So
came
just a
out.
correction. Yeah. He never, well, he was absent on,
Yeah, at the
prior
beginning.
to this. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I saw
all.
that. I saw
Okay.
that as
I
well.
have a couple of items on the minutes. Page number, 10383. Down in the middle, it's discussion. Director Thomas reported on general manager evaluation. And this is a grammatical thing, I believe. I think the board feels that there have been positive improvements, not has been, right?
Yes.
Okay, further down under reports, item 5, research is underway. I think there is research underway regarding soundproofing for the district conference rooms. And then under item 7, the last sentence, White Pines Park and would like CAL FIRE to supply a wood chipper for the project. I don't believe we have one. So we need to ask CAL FIRE if they could loan us one?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So-
No, she's making a correction
Oh,
to
correction.
6 and
Okay.
7 on the bottom
Okay.
of that page, just grammatical.
Uh-huh. Okay,
Okay, you,
those are mine.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve 3A.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you please poll?
Director Underwood?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
Director Cicada? Yes. President Thomas?
Yes.
Or I think that motion should have been to approve 3A as corrected, or as.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving on to consider 3D. Oh, pardon me, 3C,
3C.
secretarial fund.
Okay. Page number 4, and this is all the way down. We're coming to Condor Earth Technologies. And we have materials testing. Would that 20,000 have been part of the bid?
I don't, actually, so I don't believe that Condor is a subcontractor to them. They were doing some, is that for compaction testing? They're under contract for the district for compaction testing.
Okay,
So-
and so that adds that 20,000 to the Reach One. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so that is billed to the Reach One project cost. And I think that's just part of us, you know, it's the closeout of the construction component so that we can get approval from the permitting authorities. So that wouldn't necessarily be on the construction contractor, but yeah, I guess in the future, I suppose we could look to add that into a larger contract.
Why was that not included in the bid? I didn't understand your answer, I don't.
So this, I think this is for the compaction testing, that's kind of part of the final approval for work on the project after it's been, you know, they've moved on. So it's part of the final closeout, but I don't believe, but it was charged, obviously, to the project as part of the R&R.
Would you mind looking at that? Because I think the contractor who bid, wouldn't that have been in the bid if that was part of the RFP that went out to include that? And then if not, then we probably need to make sure.
I think Damon has a comment on it.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something too, that there would be a portion of the overall project cost that would be attributed to the district, independent of the bid by the contractor, and these costs should be associated with that, those costs.
So there's a separate budget item, if you will,
There's-
district cost versus contractor cost, and that's part of that one.
Correct.
Okay, then,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay. Okay, my next one is on page 5. We have DRM Construction, and I just want to ask, do you know if these are the fellows who are doing work for, was it you, Cindy? Murphy Sanitary?
Who was the?
DRM
DRM.
Construction?
No.
They're doing something on Utica Grade?
Yes, they are.
That was us.
Oh, a Caltrans job. And I just, you know, I certainly would like to put them on the list of eligible contractors because they came in and they did a fantastic job. There was very little disruption. They went boom, boom, boom. They knew what they were doing.
You
They,
know what the DRM stands for?
it's Darren McGee. Darren R. McGee. It's, but they have been a successful bidder on a number of CCWD
Oh, have
projects.
they? Okay.
Yeah, paving, and
They did the PRV installation.
oh, yeah,
last
that was
year.
the first one.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Down in
just, you know, as I say, I just am commenting on,
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you bring that up. I think that's something that we've talked about as staff is that we need to revisit the on-call list and keep it fresh and
yeah.
perhaps
yeah.
figure out if that's a appropriate way to go about bidding and contracting in the future. So I would assume you'll see something soon enough on that. I think Michael has brought that up, that maybe we need to take a fresh look at that sometime soon, so.
Okay, yeah, we've talked about keeping a fresh list of contractors for the various projects we have, and yeah, that's a good idea to keep that.
Yeah, maybe some folks need to be removed too as well, I suppose.
Well, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Oh, do tell.
okay, my other one is on page 7, and this is with Mazingo, and here's another 822, and that's, you know, for services or whatever completed, and so that was legitimate.
Yes.
Yeah, we were pleased with the work that they did.
Oh,
We just weren't
absolutely.
pleased with the work that they didn't do. And so, yes, that was the final billing, I believe. We might have one more coming, to the board at least, but I think we're all paid up as, I think the next report will probably have one more, but
Okay,
yes.
so that they should come back in the spring without our owing them
No,
any
but
money.
we definitely, Charles reviews those and then I review them to make sure that they're, and I think Jared's also involved to make sure that it's for services that have been completed. And we've called them on a few things, not that they were trying to get anything by us, but just making sure that the timing of what they're billing us for is appropriate. And, yeah, so we look at those carefully.
Just for your information, they also are leaving Blue Lake Springs for a couple of weeks because they have other things they have to complete.
Apparently, they're very busy.
When we have a job like this, do we have staff that is on site with them?
Yep.
Yeah.
That does their little daily logs?
Yeah, Jared was there almost every day, as he's our construction inspector. Kelly, who's our senior distribution worker for the Evans Pass area, was there in part just as for efficiency, because they were going to have to call on his expertise a lot anyways. So he was there pretty frequently. Charles was there from time to time, and then we also had we have a contract manager, an engineer that
We
was
had to
there.
have the archaeologist on.
And then we had a contract archaeologist that was there quite a bit as well.
I guess, when we pay them, if we have those logs that say everything they did,
Yep.
that would be a check and balance for what we pay them for.
We do, daily reports.
Is that the punch list? No.
I mean, typically, when we talk about a punch list, we're talking about things that are remaining to be done or that we have asked them to do that are still pending. So no, the daily log is more of just here's what happened today. Anything unusual that happened, any safety issues, the progress that the contractor made on that day, just so that we have a record of how the job is going.
We also have a construction manager for
Right.
that project as well, that would be taking pretty sufficient amount of notes and things like that too as well, so.
Okay.
Was that all
Thank you.
your
That's all.
questions?
Those are all
Did you have any?
Certainly.
Of course.
I'll be quick. On just page one, or on the very bottom, the health insurance, that's monthly. For employees and retirees, is that quarterly or monthly?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think I've been told monthly, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds,
Yeah. Stacy's saying yes.
yeah, I do recall signing monthly statements for those, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a quick thing. On page two, for the fuel tanks, we needed those for the power shut off, right? And so were those budgeted or not budgeted?
We had a line item, I believe it was $100,000 for either backup generation or fuel storage. Yes, the short answer is yes.
Page three, CalPELRA membership. And what's CalPELRA?
Well, as a new member, I'd be happy to report on that. CalPELRA is an HR, actually Stacy should be the one answering this question, but it's an HR professionals industry association. I was added as a member because Stacy and I will be going to their annual conference and participating in some training on labor negotiations. And it was a better value for the district for me to go as a member.
Negotiating the union contract that's coming up?
Yes.
I don't know at what point this would be a good time to say, but I would like the board to talk about who we are going to use for a strategy for this union negotiation. And Michael, you know how I kind of feel about that a little bit, and that doesn't mean anything wrong whatsoever.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but that is definitely a closed session item.
And not on the agenda right now anyway.
Well, I want to add it to the agenda at some point, if we can.
We will,
So
we will
next
have closed
page,
session items.
Page 4. On the Tech 12-month software subscription license for the shop, can you explain what that does? What is that software for? $2,900.
I can.
Sorry. So,
Something to do with vehicles?
I know, but what do we get for it? What do we do with
I
it?
believe that's associated with the DOT bid inspections for the large equipment vehicles that are mechanics.
Would you mind, you can tell me that offline, I'm just kind of curious at $2,900 what that software provides, what the benefit is. Condor Orth, you already talked about. On the same page 4, I'm talking about that UV statement processing, I always bring that up every once in a while. And I'm wondering, Peter, if I can get a total cost of, and this could be offline, of our, what the statement processing fees are, and I'd like to see it broken down, how much we pay for the billing, and as the billing, the payment is the same ticket invoice would be. And then I'd like to see what the total costs are for credit card fees and expenses. Offline is good on that.
okay. So you want it broken out by the
Billing and
various?
payments.
Yeah.
Because the processing, I believe, is only like your credit card fees, like a merchant, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And then,
Yeah, that would be it. That would be on the, the actual
you can
statements.
share
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
offline, if there's any issues, I'd like to
That,
share it.
and it's timely because we had a very detailed explanation of that when we first brought that in and Joel broke it down for us. But I'm sure that there have been changes to that,
Well, I think
changes
on
to the
budget-
charges. Uh-huh.
Yeah, on our budget, there's so many things grouped in a line item, sometimes I need a little bit of that broken out. And then on page 5, the radio read meters, is it something we get every year? We buy some of those and have them in hand, or is this part of upgrading in some kind of a, we had some
Yeah.
grant or something?
So we have a line item for replacement of meters. Essentially, at this point, we've made a decision to stop putting out manual read meters because we know that at some point we're going to need to transition to radio read meters. So it seemed, if we were going to replace them at some point, it seemed kind of to put out a technology that we are moving away from for a replacement. So we stopped putting out manual read meters.
So, I'm gonna assume that these were budgeted somewhere.
That's correct, yeah.
And are they planning on being put to use this fiscal year?
No, so they won't be able to be deployed until we have a firm AMI program in place, but they'll be ready to go.
Some of them are being
Oh,
installed.
that's right, okay, I take that back. So we had some, we did have a targeted group of meters that we were focused on because there are access issues, whether like on the other side of a fence or mean dogs. There's quite a few of them up in West Point that they had focused on. And so they deployed those, and they actually do have radio read capability with our handhelds right now. So
Okay, and I would also assume that, as we're looking at some software to read these, that these meters will work with whatever software program we have. And that's kind of a done.
yeah, I think that's part of a,
We're not using,
Did you want to comment?
Yeah, just real quickly, so we have 2 trains kind of going on at the same time. One of them is what Peter brought up, is that we did purchase some radio read meters that will basically replace meters that have limited access, or we have to constantly reach out to the property owner in order to be able to read the meter. We're gonna install a radio read that does speak directly to our handhelds now. Our meter readers can just pass that location up and the read will be obtained. And then on the other side of the conversation is that we are now purchasing radio read meters rather than manual meters, but we are installing those as meters fail because we can still read them manually. So once we move towards a software then those will be incorporated into just an automatic read system. But in the meantime, we can still open the lid, look at the number, write the number down, and move on to the next meter.
Before you step away, on that, that procedure that you're employing, that you're putting in some places, you know, or you're putting in these radio read meters routinely now. I guess it goes without saying that those locations, those specific locations, will be part of the GIS system that you're beginning to implement too, huh?
Yeah, so actually, we are keeping basically a database, for lack of a better term, spreadsheet of all the locations where we install a new meter that is not going to be part of the current radio read protocol per se. So a new meter that replaces an old mechanical read meter that we will still have to read mechanically. We keep a list of those. For the meters that we are replacing, nuisance meters that I like to call them, those are actually GPSed on the spot. So as soon as we connect the antenna that will speak to our handheld, the GPS coordinates are obtained immediately. And so then we can hand those over to GIS and they will be accurately placed on the map.
Okay, great.
And then, on same page 5, the Garcia and Associates, the archaeological monitoring, that's not an additional monitoring, that was part of the project all along?
That was a budget amendment that the board approved 2 months ago.
Yeah,
It was an additional project cost, but the board approved it.
I do believe, my understanding is that they're preparing a final report to start to close that out, but I don't have Charles here to clarify on that.
And then page 6, I'm looking at the very first one, you know, the Surface Pros for software utility staff. So is that software or did you purchase Surface Pros?
On,
Page 6, the very first item.
okay. Yeah, these are for deployment out in the field. These are Surface Pros.
So they're the actual
Physical
equipment, okay.
Physical Surface Pros, yeah. We're, you know, this is, just so you know, we're in the process of upgrading quite a few of our, you know, field deployed laptops and things. They've reached the end of their useful life. We also have quite a bit of change we know coming with Windows 10 being required to run a lot of our different pieces of software. So this was all just kind of part of planned replacement of various laptops.
I know you've been buying, you know, the last, since I've been here, so I've been questioning them every time, as long as we're making sure we're getting what's gonna work with our new CMMS software and all that stuff, you know, it's great to upgrade.
Yeah, my understanding is that, you know, it's obviously something that's left to the department heads for them to tell our IT staff what exactly it is that they like or need, and that's how that decision's made. So it's obviously in, you know, department budgets or elsewhere in the IT budget. But I've heard that this has been working well for them to be on the move. It has a ability to link up wirelessly and stuff like that.
So I
So.
think with the direction you're going with the CMMS, it's the right thing to do. Just make sure what you're buying will work with that and not coming back next year. I think that's all we're asking.
Yeah, okay.
On the same page, down at the bottom, the Matheson Trigas, liquid oxygen, I'm not certain what that's for.
It's for ozone purposes, for ozonation of this would be the water treatment plant and also the Jenny Lind water treatment plant.
Jenny Lynn and copper.
Is that something that you have to buy? Is it monthly, quarterly, annually, kind of give and take in that cost?
It's gonna be a semi-annual purchase, because we have quite large liquid oxygen tanks at those
Okay.
facilities.
That was it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, don't go away. I'll try to make this as painless as possible.
Page 6.
Page 6. No, let's go with page 2. I see a new vendor on there, Blue Tarp, and Cindy made or asked a question about these fuel tanks. So these are actually physical tanks that we bought from a vendor called Blue Tarp, or a supply place. Tell me about that.
I'm unfamiliar with that vendor, Blue Tarp.
Damon?
Yeah, I'm trying to see which one.
Page 2 here, it's for your fuel tanks for,
Seven fuel tanks.
It says
Oh,
blue,
gotcha.
there's a credit series.
Yeah, that's,
By
I don't
financial.
believe that that's necessarily the name of the actual company that provided us with the tanks themselves. It might just be the name of the actual administrative company over the tank supplier. Because I think what I can remember in working with the mechanical crew is that these were bought online from a tank manufacturer.
Okay, well, I sometimes buy things in Mississippi in a company account with a hardware store back there, and their finance mechanism is through Blue Tarp.
That's
So,
right, yeah.
okay, all right,
That's what I was trying to say earlier.
okay. And that takes care of that one. And then, this is not in sequence, but this is top on my desk here, but we have at the bottom of page 8, there's a rammer repair to United Rentals and a rammer rental. And I don't know, I always had a kind of a policy in my construction company that if it was going to cost more than 10% of the value of a tool to rent it, that I would just buy it. So is there, how do we justify spending $1,200 to rent a rammer?
Is it, yeah.
That's a
From what
frequent,
we understand, both of them were down at the same time.
Okay.
Unfortunately, so I think we were in somewhat of a pickle to get these
okay,
deployed
well,
quickly.
is this a pneumatic
Yeah,
rammer?
yeah.
Wow. Okay. You gotta look on eBay, you could,
Yeah,
Get-
Yeah,
get
and
it.
I can get you some more info on that as well.
yeah, okay. Okay, and then, this is something that happened last month too, and I didn't get a satisfactory explanation, but on 6/9, Lee and Rowe, we have one check number listed, but there's 2 items, which interestingly, the work that they're billing for are markedly different, or different locations, but the amount is identical almost to the penny. It's 1 cent off. And I'd just like for somebody to take a close look at that.
So I did talk to Charles about that. Basically, what they're doing is, because they're providing the engineering services for that, it's essentially one larger project. Those are 2 pieces of it that we are tracking the billing on separately, and because there's a possibility that we would only do one portion of it, do that first phase of it. But when it comes to, portions of work like what they did here, their calculation is that they spent X number of hours on it, and 50% of that was attributable to each of those projects. And so they just divided it in half. There may be other times where it's all one or the other, or it may be a different ratio. But in this instance, their calculation was that they were spending half of that effort was distributed to each of those 2 projects. But what we know overall is that it's one large project, 2 pieces of one large project.
Well, why don't you whisper in their ear and just tell them that they should go 55%, 45 or something, so it doesn't look so weird.
Make it a little more proportionate. Okay, we'll do.
It's just,
It really bugs you, huh?
It's
looks like they
been
just-
bugging him for 2
It's actually, if you look at it, it's actually probably 50.001 and 49.9999.
I think so.
what it looks
Well, it's
like.
an odd number that they had to divide in half.
Well, I realize that, but it just looks so arbitrary, and these are engineers, I mean, they should not be arbitrary.
Oh, right, that's against their nature, I would
I
imagine.
don't- it
Ask
just-
him about it.
It just
Yeah.
bugs me. Okay,
They don't
and
have half cents, though.
I did get the answer to this question before about the septic tank repairs. $48,000 to DRM. And
What
I'm-
page are you on now?
5 of 9, and I was told that that was many septic tank repairs, not just one septic tank, so.
Yeah, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I want to say it was more than 15.
There's a total of 60 tanks.
Right. It's the Southwest system that we're talking
And
about.
the overall work effort was somewhere close to 50K, so I would say this was approximately 40 of those tanks.
Oh,
Okay.
40, okay.
Okay, well, but you can see, Bertha, DRM is working a lot for the district, and they are, I agree, a very fine operation. Okay, that's all.
And my understanding in that instance was we were very pleased with the work that they did down there. Yeah.
They do really, really good work, yeah.
Just a kind of a qualitative type of an observation is I really like construction companies where the owner of the company runs the equipment too.
Yeah.
That makes a good impression on me anyway, so. Darren's a hard-working guy. Okay, so we have beat that to death, so.
It's already
anybody-
taken us longer to get through the consent agenda than the entire last meeting. Which you were congratulated on at the time.
Do you want to make a motion on?
Oh, I'd love to. Like
Do I have to
to,
make it?
no, move for acceptance of 3C.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on 3C. Would you please poll?
Yes.
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 And President Thomas.
Yes, finally.
And just keep in mind that if the power goes out, we will have lights but no air conditioning, so.
Oh, oh my God.
It's probably still colder outside than it is inside. anyway.
Let's consider, we want to consider reconsidering that motion based on the public comment that's going to be coming forth here.
Okay.
Welcome.
One quick one is, for some reason, the agenda packet that I got online from Rebecca is numbered different than yours. And it's been very interesting trying to figure out where you guys were.
Oh, my God.
So I'm in the same boat as you, Vicky. I've been doing the same exact thing, and we're one page behind. And I
Yeah.
think the difference is, well, actually, I still haven't figured it out. I finally figured out we were one page off.
Yeah, we're
but
one page
I don't
off,
know why
so-
it was like that.
If you didn't give the name of who you were looking at, you're going, okay, where's that amount? Yeah, number 2. Got a question on one of my favorite subjects.
Want me to say it?
I guess what I'm going to ask is,
In summary.
why wasn't the cyanobacteria sampling done at the same time the toxin testing district-wide was? Because we've got 2 different checks on that, and it looks like it was probably done at 2 different times.
So we've done multiple rounds of testing, and there'll be more. And it's kind of, it has varied depending on the test results. So we did an initial round, some interesting findings. We needed to go back and do some additional testing. And based on those results, we know we're going to do some ongoing monitoring. So those are not,
So on the district-wide, it wasn't, then I'm questioning, it wasn't as detailed for the DNA as the other, or?
all of them are, so that when you test for cyanotoxins, it has to go down.
Well,
to
that's
the
what I thought. That's why I was
DNA
really
level.
curious why you had to go back to those 2 that you didn't get the actual result on the district-wide. I'm questioning how Ben Genetics did this is really what I'm questioning.
It's just been multiple rounds of it. And so, and then, like I said, there'll be more, probably in the next report as well that we went back and did. And I believe we did one this month too. Yeah. So it's not standard. We typically wouldn't have done that except for the prevalence of the algae blooms this year. So this is in response to developing
Oh,
conditions.
believe me, I know more about cyanobacteria than I ever want to know.
We've been on a very steep learning curve, and Damon in particular is getting involved with the state level task force, and we're suddenly learning a lot about cyanobacteria.
Yes, I have found out that if you get sprayed with water that has the toxin in it, it will affect you.
Okay,
But I was just curious why it didn't get shown, why the district-wide did, you had to go back and do other samplings. Because from what I have learned on testing, it should have shown up on the district-wide as detailed as doing the extra samplings.
So I guess when you say district-wide, really they're all specific to a particular location. So,
Yeah, and it says district-wide, that's what threw me.
oh, I see. So district-wide, I think, is what we did initially at various different sites, just to test for the presence, because of what we had been hearing about the prevalence of the harmful algal blooms. And then it was particular areas after that we had to go back and do additional testing because of
So what I
evolving conditions.
think I'm hearing here, Michael, is that when Ben did the district-wide, they just basically tested to see if there was any cyanobacteria showing at all. And then when the cyanobacteria showed up, they went back and tested for the toxin.
I believe we were testing for the toxins on both instances.
Damon, you have a,
Yeah, so what district-wide is essentially all raw water supplies to all of our water treatment facilities. And then we wanted to then look at the Forest Meadows effluent pond, which is the wastewater. And then the Calaveras River, we wanted to take a look because the initial set of samples in that district-wide set were out of Hogan. And so then we said, you know what, let's just pull one directly out of the river. And so that district-wide is just an aggregate of all these different sites. And they're essentially all raw water supplies to treatment plants. And then we did two additional rounds, one at the river and one at the wastewater.
Okay,
So most of those sites, we did not go back and test again because no toxins were found. We had no reason to believe there would be any change in the test results. But then there were those two particular sites where we decided to
you
do
and I are going
additional
to discuss
testing.
this offline then, okay?
And all the sample, all the data was, all the analyses were the same. So the detailed data did not change from site to site.
Yeah, we'll discuss this offline then. Thank you.
okay, it's, Director Ratterman has reminded me that it has long been policy of the board of CCWD to not open up this particular, the consent items to public comment. So that's what the policy says. So I would,
That's against the Brown.
Once you pull them off the consent agenda,
Once it's off the consent agenda, it's wide open.
okay. See, you got me in trouble.
No. Corrected, I didn't say a thing.
Okay,
I don't know what he's talking about.
all right, well, we're doing our due diligence here, so. All right, moving on to new business. Do we have any, we have no new business to conduct here, but do we have public comment on our lack of new business? No? All right, item 5 is old business, starting with 5A, update to the Calaveras County General Permit Conditions and Specifications for trench cuts and street resurfacing. Are you the expert on this?
You don't consider myself an expert on this. I will have some comments on it, and we are in the process of drafting finalizing a comment letter that we'll be submitting to the county this week. I was hoping to have a draft of that ready for you this week, but PSPS has really taken up a big chunk of time this week, so we don't have that letter finalized yet, but we will prior to the deadline to submit it to the county. The background on it is, this is, the county originally rolled out what they were calling at the time of the Dig Once policy. It's been probably 6 months now, maybe not quite that long, but it's been around for a while. We submitted an initial round of comments along with other utilities. And one of the comments that we made was that what they were proposing was not really a Dig Once policy as it is known industry-wide. It was more of just a revision to their trench specifications. And they, to the county's credit, we definitely appreciate the fact that they've gone back and taken a hard look at it. They've substantially revised the proposal, and they're no longer calling it a dig once policy. Now they are just referring to it as revisions to their trenching and patch paving specifications or something along those lines. So they've acknowledged that distinction. So there's been some significant improvements, but we still have some pretty serious concerns. And both as far as the technical specifications are concerned, but really my main concern is the warranty provisions, and I believe we included a copy of the proposed policy in the agenda packet, and we referenced those, the policies that we're primarily concerned about. And they are, it's troubling in part because there is one section that says there's essentially a 2-year warranty for the work that's performed in the county right away. And that's fairly standard from what we've found. Most agencies will require a 1 or a 2-year warranty. The hard part is for us, the next section that essentially imposes a lifetime guarantee on anybody who's doing work in the county right away. Because there's they can, essentially what it says is they can come back at any time if they determine that a failure in a road condition is attributable to the work that a contractor or a utility does in the roadway, then they would require the repair. And if there's a dispute over that, there's a dispute resolution process in the provision, or sorry, yeah, in that section. But this is really above and beyond what the industry standard is. We've had, Jared's done some research, Jared and Damon both have looked at other counties, other agencies, even Caltrans doesn't have that similar type of essentially lifetime warranty that they're requiring of the utility.
Are they trying to, they want this lifetime warranty, but are they really just trying to say if there's a defect in the manufacturing or the implementing of it, or they just really want it all?
So it's hard to say, because on one hand, once the county inspectors are there, they'll be involved, especially if it's a larger project. They're there approving the materials that are used. We'll do compaction testing, comply with all the county standards. So the assumption here is the scenario that we're worried about is we've gone through that whole process. The county approved the repair that we did, signed off on it, and then 5-10 years down the road, there's some issue with that road or that area of the road, and they're trying to hold us accountable still for that condition. And it may or may not be attributable to the work that the district did, and it may be hard for a third party, contractor to come in and resolve that dispute, especially considering the state of many of the county roads right now. So that's really where the issue comes into play, is we don't want to have to fight that battle 5, 10, 15 years down the road, when it's really, at that point, becomes hard to determine what the cause of the road repair was. And really that's not the district's responsibility, or the contractor, utility contractor's responsibility. When at that point, it really just becomes a road maintenance issue. And that's the way other counties, other agencies handle it.
But you've indicated that the county has been fairly easy to work with on this and did make some changes to the initial draft that they presented. Well, you said 6 months ago. I think it was less than that. But do they appear to be easy to work with going forward, or?
I don't know if I said easy to work.
Easier to work with.
They have been receptive, definitely,
Okay.
to the comments that we made. They put work into addressing those comments and revising the policy. But that is one issue that really they've kind of dug their heels in on. They know that we have significant concerns about it. We discussed it at the utility coordination meeting, and one of my comments to them was, don't call it, and one of the confusing things here is the 2-year warranty. What's the point of the 2-year warranty if you're also going to have this other provision that essentially is a lifetime warranty? So remove one or the other to eliminate confusion, first of all, and it should be the 2-year warranty that stays and not the other one. That's more the industry standard. But on that one, they haven't, not only have they not been willing to budge, I'd say they actually went the opposite direction and are trying to make it stronger. And, you know, I think, I definitely, I mean, I think they're trying to get it right. And I give them credit for that. But you know, I think the cynical view here would be, you know, they're trying to pass on what is otherwise county road maintenance responsibility to utilities, and that's really not where that responsibility lies.
Well, my question is how much of a problem is this to them? You know, it sounds like they're trying to, you know, tie it all down, and is it a major problem?
That is a good question. So the county is conducting, or may have just finished, a pavement index survey for the entire county. So they're looking at all the roads in the county because they have the PG&E settlement money. They've dedicated some Prop 1 gas tax money. There's going to be a lot of paving, a lot of road work going on in the county over the next several years, which I think is welcome. And we certainly want to support and applaud that effort. So to the extent to which the road conditions or problems with the roads are caused by utilities is an interesting question. I don't know that we have specific data on that.
You know, I don't see how they can make it a lifetime warranty because you have normal wear and tear after all these years. We all pay taxes for these roads. So how can they say that our portion has to be, you know, lifetime? And then the other comment is, if they were really good about this, before they go and repave that road, they reach out to every entity to make sure there's nothing that needs to be replaced, so they can be coordinated to get the work done, and then hopefully it will last for another 5 years or whatever.
So good, those are very good points. One thing I should point out is they're not calling it a lifetime warranty. That's the term that I guess I'm using, but that's essentially what it is, because they are saying at any point in the future they can come back and say that we're the cause of a particular road problem because at one point in time we did work in that area.
And because of that, that's why I think they're trying to cover defect and workmanship, which potentially I guess some contractors can do. And if that's what they're trying to do, then they should say, if there was actually a defect in the workmanship, then they should be able to come back, and maybe the word should be that. And then how do you prove it was a defect, but you know, how do you prove that it was our fault in the first place and not just wear and tear?
Well, and that's the concern, and that is what they're saying, is that if there's a problem with a road repair that we did, regardless of when the problem arises, that the liability remains with us. But how you determine that liability or who's actually at fault when all of the county codes were complied with and the county inspector signed off on the work that was done becomes almost impossible in many cases, considering the state of many roads. So that's really where, and if we were to require that kind of a provision in our contracts with paving contractors, we either wouldn't, I think there's two things that would happen. One, we might not be able to find a paving contractor to work for us.
Cooper would say, you know, hey,
even if we did, the cost
Yeah.
would be, you know, way higher in order for them to sign on to it. So it's really not, like I said, it's not the industry standard that we would hope they would be striving for. So we'll make these comments again to get back to Director Ratterman's question. You know, we'll point these things out and hope that we're still participating in an iterative process that the policy will continue to be revised going forward.
So more to come.
More to come, hopefully.
Okay.
We'll see. It's currently scheduled, I believe, to be before the supervisors in November. So hopefully there will be more to come. If it's adopted as is, then we'll have to discuss strategies for dealing with it.
Well, throughout the document, their terminology, all of their verbiage points to the fact that they really don't want to be overly demanding. They want to use industry standards, but you know, that's not a standard. So how they're not being consistent with their stated intention. Did you have another?
Yeah, the letter that you sent to them regarding this particular project, can you send us a copy?
Absolutely.
Send it to us, just so we know what you wrote when somebody might come to us.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the department head of Public Works is still
Josh Pack.
Josh Pack, and we have not had any direct correspondence or communication with him, I guess, on this policy. So a couple of engineers and the county inspector, 2 county inspectors came to the Utilities Coordination Committee meeting where this was probably the main topic of discussion. But Josh Pack was not at that meeting. So we haven't had any direct communication with him about this other than with other public work, through other public works staff. But he'll get the letter that we submit, and we hope that there is still an opportunity for dialogue and for revisions to the draft policy.
Do something on topic, but it's starting to get windy outside.
Okay.
Could I ask for one more correction, please? In the 5th paragraph, staff is reviewing the revised policy. On the front page, the 5th paragraph,
Agenda item?
on
The staff report?
the letter from Michael
She's
to the
become an
board.
English teacher.
Staff is reviewing?
Well, this is from Michael.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, okay.
Are we looking at the staff report? Is that? Okay.
The letter,
She's just correcting your,
Being a grammar teacher.
yeah, I know, 3rd grade grammar teacher here.
I consider myself a grammar nerd as well, so I take those comments seriously.
If I'm permitted, I want to ask a couple of questions about this too. Damon,
You'll get gooder then.
Me working on it.
this drawing is offensive to me. There isn't anything about this that, I mean, it wouldn't pass a 3rd grade drafting class. You know, why aren't they more consistent with their scales? And
It's a great question, and you know, oftentimes we have conversations, and Jared and I have discussed this, and that our specifications are more detailed than what the county has proposed, and a lot of the utilities in the county have more detailed specifications.
do you see what I'm talking about? They've got a 12-inch maximum here represented, and then up here they've got 12-inch represented as being 3 times wider than that 12-inch. And 18 inches
18
deep.
inches is, yeah.
all I'm doing is correcting.
Let's add that to the comment.
2 inches up and down is the same as 12 inches going across.
What it does is it really sets up people to make mistakes in the field, and
Because as you know, the field will follow this as detailed as they can
To the
absolutely
T.
get. To the T.
yeah. So I would think that this should be the thrust of what we're trying to do, is to have them come up with a document that's
Yeah, that caution tape
That's-
on there's got to be about 8 inches wide.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, things like that bother me. And then, would it be considered to be an industry standard that if your edge of your saw cut is within 6 feet of the edge of the road, that you're obliged to pave that whole area? If you've got a 3-foot wide trench and the edge of your trench is 6 feet over to the edge of the street, you'd have to be repaving a 9-foot wide area. Is that Is that usual and customary?
Is it 3 feet
3 feet.
is generally the standard?
Anything less than 3 feet would have to be removed to the shoulder.
This says, I think it says 6.
But
And
not 6.
Yeah.
Caltrans standard is 6 feet, 4 feet from edge of trench, and then whatever your trench width is.
well, I was reading this online, and I didn't have a chance to make the specific notes or highlights, but I'm certain that it says if your trench, the edge of your trench is within 6 feet of the edge of the road, that you're obliged to.
What they're proposing.
They're proposing, yeah.
Something like that.
Okay,
Industry standard would be 3 feet.
okay, so that's something that we should bring
We
to
can
their
add,
attention
yeah,
as
exactly.
well.
Yep.
And it, we used to, or they used to refer to it as the dig once thing, but when they specify that you're prohibited from making a road or a trench in a road that is less than 2 years old, or two years or less, so that's almost like a don't dig policy.
That's a great point you made.
Which is, I mean, I think to me, that's more of an objective than a mandate. And we want to work with them to make sure that we're timing infrastructure projects. We don't want to go dig in a brand new road. So if we have work that we know we plan to do before the county goes in and paves, then yeah, we would like to coordinate that work effort so that we're doing our work before they go in and repave. But if it's a brand new road and we've got a leak that we need to repair, we're going to repair the leak. And that's, that's something that just has to be understood. So we're working with them on the scope of their jurisdiction here and on what we hope the final policy will look like.
Okay. And this is going to go to the board when?
November 5th.
November 5th, right, first meeting in November, I believe.
Okay. All right, were there any other comments on this? This is an informational thing, I guess.
Yeah, informational for now. We will provide the board with a copy of our comment letter that we'll submit before the end of this week, and other utilities as well. And hopefully there'll be, like I said, there'll be some more dialogue on this. But if not, we'll also appear at that supervisors meeting to make additional comments there.
Okay, next item is a report on the August 2019 Operations Department by Damon.
Good afternoon, President Thomas, directors. I will be brief. Just want to run through a few of the high points associated with field work in the month of September. This is a repair on a water main on Hoffman Drive in the Rancho Calaveras neighborhood. Just kind of want to highlight the fact that over the past few months we have had some AC main issues in the Rancho Calaveras area, which is contrary to the norm. Normally we have service line repairs that go on quite extensively. Actually, we had 38 service line repairs last month in the Rancho area.
An AC repair versus a service line?
Yeah, so if you look at the water main on the picture on the left has the spray coming out, that's an asbestos cement water main, so we call it an AC main. And then you can see how small the leak is. It was about a thumb-sized hole in the bottom of the main, and field staff feel that there was a pointy rock, just kind of that had worked its way, finally just poked a hole in the main over years and years and years of being there.
Is that an engineering term, a pointy rock?
Yes. Yes, that's field language right there. And so you can see how big of a repair clamp we have to place on that main. And then, so here's an example of Kirby, which is part of the service line replacement project that's going to happen here hopefully soon. Just want to point out that staff was out in the middle of the night fixing a service line on Kirby, and that we've had 10 repairs since the pre-construction meeting in August on Kirby. So we can't get to that project soon enough. And here's a picture of the water main in Big Trees Village on
Right,
Ottawa.
that was, yeah.
We actually had 2 main breaks in the area 2 days apart, which resulted in approximately a 5-day boil water advisory for the folks in that area, just simply based on the fact that we were able to recharge the system, fill the tank. The tank is kept at about 60,000 gallons. We lose that volume, I want to say, in less than 10 minutes. And so quite catastrophic. And so when we refine, it takes quite a while to recharge that tank. And then we put folks on a boil water advisory while we pull back T samples. And incidentally, in the midst of that wait for the sample results, we had another line break that drained the tank again. So there was quite a lot of work from the construction crew associated with repairs in that area. And so this is an interesting one. Yeah.
That customer was very pleased with the response
Good.
from.
Was that Dick?
Not this time.
Yeah, we have a great crew up there. And as soon as they get the alarm for low tank level at 4 and 5, they know what's going on and they move quickly.
Yay for 4 and 5.
Yeah, right. And so here's some pictures of what our mechanical staff have been working on for the the end of September, basically, is that we're constructing a mechanism on a trailer with which that we can pull power cable, armored power cable to a raw water pump, and we're gonna go ahead and replace a failed raw water pump in Lake Tulloch, and then set a new redundant pump in an empty cradle in the lake. And so the mechanical staff worked with the electricians and the construction crew to devise a way to very easily just pick the intake structure with the pump in it up with the backhoe and just walk it down the hill while the armored power cable is on a spool on the tripod that you see on the trailer, and it just unwinds. And so then staff can just lay that in the trench, and we can put that, we can hand it, for lack of a better term, over to the divers that we're gonna have on site, and they can float it down to where it's gonna live. And
What would you have done before creating this or manufacturing this yourself?
Right.
What would and I'm just curious, because the JPIA
That's
La
I
Bounty
was
Safety
thinking about that,
Awards,
yeah.
I mean, it looks for employees in districts
Right.
that are doing things that might make it a safer project or an easier way of doing
Right.
things.
so what,
Are you thinking of submitting this?
I think we're already past the we could submit it for next year. We
Okay.
did submit, we did submit a nomination last month, but I believe the
good.
deadline was September 30th, if I remember
Oh, okay,
correctly.
good.
But we
So what
can
would-
make a
what would
note
the-
of this one for next
pro-
year.
absolutely,
There would have been a different way of doing it without creating this new piece of machinery
yeah.
that wouldn't have been as,
So the great advantage, and why this was devised, is because when the electricians connect the pump to the armored power cable, they put on a watertight seal that has to set for hours. And so what would have happened previously is the construction crew would have grabbed a hold of the intake structure with the pump in it and the screen and walked it down to the barge, and the electricians would have been on the barge, and they would have pulled armored power cable down and tried to set it and estimated how much slack they're gonna need, and made a big bend in that armored power cable, and then made their connections on the barge. And then everyone would have to sit and wait for a couple of hours for the connection to set up. And then the divers could then drop it down into the reservoir and set it. And so this is gonna dramatically speed up the whole job. So we can set the wire on the mechanism, we can set the intake structure, set the pump, and then wire up the armored power cable next week. And so we can have everything set and ready to deploy the week that the divers show up. And so we're hoping to shave, ideally a day. This is usually a 4 to 5 day work effort, and we're hoping to get it done in 3. We'll see how we do.
wow.
Currently, the plan is to replace the failed pump and install a redundant pump the week of the 21st. So just an example of teamwork here that happens with a bunch of different crews working together.
And for the JPIA submission, we should note these are shark-infested waters with an alligator species.
Are we patenting that too?
Yeah. Right. Speaking of shark-infested waters,
Every time?
yeah,
Yeah, right.
here's a picture.
It's even scarier.
So this is kind of another example of
Yeah.
cooperation and teamwork amongst a bunch of folks. You know, it was recognized that there was a need for improvement in the Forest Meadows Pond in terms of water quality, and our wastewater treatment operators got together with the mechanical staff and the electrical staff, and they worked out some options to quickly deploy an aerator. And this was, the aerator had been sitting in the yard for quite a while some years ago, and then it was deployed at the Forest Meadows wastewater plant. And so staff saw an opportunity to make use of it elsewhere, and we were able to get it in the pond and get it running in about a day and a half. So that's quite an accomplishment as well. And then, so that's a pic from a couple days ago with the aerator working over in the corner.
Are the residents happier there now? Is it getting better?
You know, I think
That's
I'm
actually-
cautiously optimistic. I don't know what your thought is, Michael.
Go door to door now.
That's a-
I'm curious as how they're coming around or what's up.
Well, since we got rid of the smell,
We'll have a separate agenda item on that.
And so then, wanted to follow up on we had talked about this, or I had presented this to y'all in the last operations department report of this vault lid at Saddle Creek, the PRD that feeds Saddle Creek. We have limited access, and we have, it's a great safety concern on the district. And I believe this was submitted to JPIA
Really?
for a safety award.
Oh.
Because as you can see, you know, you've got a 6-inch thick concrete lid with a small, maybe 3x3 access hatch that is covering, you know, 12-inch water pipe that's breaking 180 psi in head pressure in order to convey it down to Saddle Creek and the community there. So access and our ability to remove the lids on the pressure reducing valves is limited through that small opening. So we got together and replaced the lid with some diamond plate and made 3 access hatches with ladders, so we could actually pick whatever component we would need to pick out of the vault itself, and we can push air into the vault to eliminate any odor or any hydrogen sulfide issues, and we can make it a much safer place to work. And so that's what the folks did here towards the end of September.
Was that whole device fabricated by our forces?
This was fabricated by a local metal fabricator named Mark Lowe out of Murphy's.
Okay.
But all the material and equipment, and our guys were pretty much involved with the design as well, and he put it all together for him. And then finally, here's a pic of a really nice drone pic of West Point. So thanks, y'all.
Okay.
Any other questions?
yeah, I do have one. On the front page, it says financial considerations, none? No, what do you mean by that?
Which one was that?
Oh, no.
Oh, on the staff report itself. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about money in any way, so I think we could probably take that off the staff report.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Software that we
Yeah.
use
All
to
of our
develop
staff, that's just standard.
Yeah.
All of our staff reports have financial considerations. Most of them, it's none, but where there is a financial, if it's gonna be a budget impact, we need to make sure. it's
agendas and
Yes.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
Tell me again, where is that photo?
That is West Point wastewater treatment facility
Oh, nice.
and shop. Yep.
And a drone, you said?
Yep.
Your drone?
This is the district's drone.
Oh. Will you lend that drone to PG&E so that they can inspect?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That they
You know
can
what, I'm sure we
inspect
could work
the-
something out.
Well, at least we're getting some wind now, so at least it makes sense that they may be shutting us off.
Yeah.
At least that window is.
Yeah.
There was wind at my house.
Thank you all.
About
Appreciate
about 3
Thank
hours
you.
ago. About
Thank
11.
you, David.
No, San Andreas.
In Mountain
Right up on,
Range,
right up on top of the hill here.
Walking distance here.
we were shut off. I'm out at, Swiss Ranch and Railroad Flat, and there was absolutely nothing, but they shut it off.
Right.
Yeah.
It has, yeah, so, and that's something I've been talking to folks about, because it has a lot to do with what portion of the grid you're connected to. So the wind event may not necessarily be hitting your house, but that transmission line that serves that portion of the grid is what they're concerned
Are
about.
we shut off at West Point, Wilseyville?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I heard, and
I
then
think those are the first ones.
Sault Marie is, I know, is shut off.
And I'm just not far from there at all, so. But I think most of us
Okay,
have generators.
moving on. We have a general manager here today.
Ouch. Missed one meeting. So, and I do have a report. And I am working on hopefully standardizing and getting in the habit of, this is one of the comments the board gave me during an evaluation, was written reports. And I didn't get it out in advance, and it needs some more work, but let me know if you have feedback. I did prepare a little bit of a written report.
You know, if we have something like this, it can cut down on your time. If we need it. I know.
Obviously.
But Lisa knows to ask you about if we have questions about particular something also.
In the future, yeah, I'll try to elaborate, include more in there and get it out in advance of the meeting. But the top item, the biggest news, I think, and something that I'm really excited about is Jeff's replacement, the new Director of Administrative Services.
I thought Peter was Jeff's replacement.
Peter is currently Jeff's replacement.
Okay, all right.
Peter is currently doing 2 full-time jobs, and he's doing a phenomenal job of it. But that's not a permanent solution.
Okay,
So
all right.
we're just really excited about Rebecca Callan joining the team and taking the reins of that department. I think it's going to be fantastic. So that's the biggest news. Public safety power shutoff. We've been kind of laser focused on that this week. As everybody knows, it's about to happen. We did a joint press release yesterday with all the other water and wastewater agencies in Calaveras County. Really trying to get the water conservation message out. We've been saying that for months now, but now that everybody's actually paying attention, we felt like reaching out to the other water agencies and us all blasting that message was going to be more effective, and I think it has been.
Maybe we didn't talk about it, but I know MSD would be open to doing the cost share and the cost of that.
Really, no.
Actually, for a law like that, there is
No cost, really.
They can put it in if they want to.
Right, so we just drafted it and gathered all the different agencies so that we could all, put our logos on it and then blasted it out to all the media outlets. So there's no cost there, yeah. Other than staff time, but pretty minimal. Damon and his staff have done a phenomenal job preparing us for it. Our generators are ready to go. Our fuel tanks are topped off. Our water tanks are topped off. Field staff, we've identified a pretty significant number of field staff that'll be on standby, ready for the refueling effort, make sure the generators keep running. We feel like we're as prepared for it as we can be, and we also anticipate the unanticipated. We know there's going to be things that occur that that we just hadn't thought of, and we won't know until they happen, and we're gonna roll with that too. So
Okay, I would like to talk about item 4. We anticipate most of the county,
yes,
with the exception of Valley Springs.
that's right. Valley Springs so far.
Because we're hearing Wednesday and Thursday, didn't say anything about through the weekend. At least
It could be
up-
till Tuesday.
Could be up to 5 days when it goes back on.
Yeah. They have to check all.
The problem is, the problem is not the wind so much as the fact that they're turning off power to 800,000 customers.
Right.
And they've got to visually inspect every inch of those lines.
Well, that's why I say we're loaning them our drone. But Vicki brought up what she heard this morning about 1,000 to 3,000 feet being cut off. The rest of us up the hill have our power.
So the message has been evolving. I mean, based on the latest update we got, we're supposed to be out by now. And it still hasn't occurred. So they're waffling, and we've been in touch with County OES. Damon and I were at the Emergency Operations Center this morning. Even the message OES is getting varies. So it's not a precise target, but based on what we've been told, we're prepared for. I think from our perspective, we need to be prepared for a countywide outage. We know for the most part none of the maps have included Valley Springs. So that's actually a pretty big relief for us. We're able to relocate some trailer mounted generators, and some of the work effort that we would have to do down there, we have, that frees up some resources for the rest of the county. So we have to be prepared for that eventuality of the rest of the county being out for 5 days. And hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully the power stays on. But at this point, we just need to make sure we're prepared for it.
The only thing we're missing right now is the snow. Otherwise, we know how to deal with it,
Right.
Did you want to comment on?
I was just gonna say, I just received an email, and the local OES office just got a note from the PG&E that now we can anticipate 3 o'clock as the outage time. So,
For this area.
yeah, we shall see.
Well, let's keep the meeting going then.
Yeah. So like I said, from the district's perspective, Damon, his crew, everybody's done just a phenomenal job preparing for this. We've also really ramped up the public outreach effort this week. Joel's been essential in that. We just sent another, in addition to the press release yesterday, we just made a Facebook post because we're trying to get homeowners to become more aware of how their own especially on the wastewater side, how their own sewer connections work. And if there's an electrical pump in there somewhere, anywhere along the line between their house and our collection system, unless they've got backup generation, it's not going to function, and they need to be aware of what the capacity of their system is. And so we're really trying to press that message for people to make sure they know how their home works and how what kind of capacity they have.
And I saw the video that you and Joel made with Channel 10. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for us because Joel and I and Damon had been talking already yesterday morning about how we can get the word out again, and Channel 10 contacted us, or was it 10?
Yeah, 10.
Contacted us, and so we jumped on that opportunity to make sure we use every outlet we can find. So, appreciate it.
So I have some questions on here. Is this a good time to start talking?
I can just. I'm just at PSPS, but real quick, I can just touch on the other items real quick, unless you have questions about those first two.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. Courtyard, I just wanted to give a brief update that we discussed it in engineering committee, and internally we've had some follow-up meetings since then. Our engineers are working on building layout as well as site layout. We're trying to do as much of the work as we can in-house, and the plans are changing so that we can try to keep the cost down as low as possible. So we'll have more to follow on that. The harmful algae blooms, we talked about a little bit. We're learning a lot about it. We've been in touch with county environmental health. Damon's been working with folks on the state level. We're really just trying to educate ourselves because it's become more of a problem here than it has been in the past. A couple of just staffing updates. We promoted Sam to senior engineering technician. I think a well-deserved promotion, and he impressed us all in an interview. And that will be essentially Robbie's replacement. It's a different position. Robbie's an engineering analyst, but we're promoting Sam to take on most of what Robbie does, and then there's a portion of Robbie's work that we'll have to reallocate internally. But that was the main reason behind the promotion. But
Ooh, bless you.
much deserved. And then attended the NCPA annual conference where I missed the last board meeting. And on Friday, Director Ratterman and I were at Nevada Irrigation District for a forest management meeting Aqua Region 3 hosted, and there was some really interesting discussions. I brought back some of that information to staff. Peter and I have had some follow-up discussions on some of the presentations that were made there, and we got to see a lot of the work. NID's been doing a lot of work on forest management, getting different grants to come in and do some really impressive projects. But one of the other takeaways for me was that we need to be doing a better job in terms of advertising, or at least just the public outreach of what UMRA has done, because I was very impressed at what NID has done. I know Placer County has also done a lot of work, and Yuba, other agencies. But we need to make sure people realize the amount of work that CCWD and UMRA have done along those lines as well. So Joel has followed up this week with Richard Sykes, the executive director at UMRA, and we're working on a press release that will hopefully help spread the word that, you know, we're doing what we can in the watersheds where we work to try to promote forest health and reduce the risk of wildfire.
Do you want to comment on NID's, their fire plugs and the GIS system that they have, so on their website, to allow everyone to see where all fire hydrants are and whether they're working?
Okay, no. It actually is something we could probably deploy. I meant to talk to you about that later. I think we could, I'll talk to Sam. I think we could probably deploy it pretty quickly. But NID, and they got the idea, I think, from EID initially, El Dorado Irrigation District, has on their website, you can pull up a map that has a GIS layer of the different, all their fire hydrants. And, you know, so you can look at where your house is in proximity to the closest fire hydrant. And it's a tool, I think, that a lot of, it seems like their public has really appreciated having. And it also,
especially at these times where that's something that everyone's insurance company looks at as to how close, and it's proof right there, and it's very easily accessed.
Right. So instead of those folks having to call to figure out, you know, how
or make
far
a visual
the closest
inspection is what a lot of them do.
Right.
So
At
we
this
can
point,
just
have
in
that
time.
information out there. So
Yeah.
that's something we'll work on. Yeah. We've had some. Because Damon mentioned the raw water pump project at Tulloch, and so that's prompted some discussions with Tridam, and it's a relationship I've been wanting to invest in a little bit at some point, and that project obviously brings it to the surface. So actually tomorrow we'll be meeting here with Jeff Shields, who's a name you probably remember from the past. Retired SSJID GM, who's currently the interim GM at Tridam. And Jeff, so Jeff will be here tomorrow. We'll talk about that project and kind of get him up to speed. I think, if I remember correctly, he retired from SSJID in 2015 or 2016. So he's obviously familiar with us, and we're familiar with him, and so we'll get caught up and talk about that project and make sure that we have the green light to go there. And then lastly, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Will Susan be attending?
I don't know if Susan is also coming to that meeting. I know Jesse and Damon met with her last week.
Oh, okay.
Separately, and I don't know if she's going to be here tomorrow with Jeff or not.
Oh, I thought I heard that she had retired, no?
Susan Larson?
Yeah,
She's with Tridam. I think she was at the county before.
no, but from Tridam.
No.
No.
Okay.
I think she'll be there forever.
Lastly, I gave you the itinerary from Mia. You know, consistent with past performance, Mia has packed a really awesome itinerary for us next week. And the main purpose of that trip is to try to bring home some Army Corps funding for wastewater system and infrastructure improvement projects. So this is really the critical time to make sure we get something in the next federal budget. Director Davidson.
And why is this the first time we're hearing of this?
It's not. We've talked about this.
On October 16th visit to Washington, D.C. with?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I've talked about it at each of the last several meetings. where this is the Section 219 project effort. Well, there's actually two efforts here. One is to bring back the most immediate effort is the Section 219 authorization that has been on the books for more than 10 years now. And if we don't get some actual budget
Right,
allocation in this year's budget, we will lose that authorization. And
Well, I've been on the legislative committee the last 2 years running. I wasn't on it this year, but I was the alternate, and no one ever came to me about the possibility, and I know that obviously Director Thomas or President Thomas was unable to make it, but I was never approached as the alternate on that committee to make the trip and help make a difference.
Yeah, I apologize for that. We had a legislative committee meeting 2 weeks ago to talk about the itinerary specifically and more of the details, sort of a prep meeting. But this been in the works for about a month or more. It must have been more than a month. But I apologize we didn't reach out to you specifically on
Would you
that.
like to go?
Yeah, I will look into that, to join in, possibility of joining you.
Okay, great. That I think. Oh, sorry. The secondary objective. The first is to really try to secure some of that Section 219 authorization that's on the books right now, and then we're also working on a new authorization to be included in the next WRDA, a much bigger authorization that we would be able to hopefully use in the coming years. So
In the coming years or year?
Well, the Section 219 authorization, if we're able to get some of that in the budget, we have to use that money this year.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, and so the next one.
So
will
the second request that we have is a project proposal for a new WRDA authorization for, I think we're in the neighborhood of 13, 14 million, for additional wastewater system improvement projects. And that wouldn't be actually in the federal budget. It would be an authorization that then in future years, we could go through this similar process and have that money allocated.
Okay, I just would like to make a comment about the trip to Washington, and what I am pleased about is to have, the same people going, because, it only makes sense that you see the same people who have all that knowledge, and they know what you want. And,
We really,
Our representatives too.
yeah, that's what I
The
meant,
same-
yeah,
we really defer to Mia on the best way to do this and whether, the right timing too. My question to her was, because we don't want to do these kinds of trips unless they're necessary and they're going to be productive. And so my question to her was, would it make a difference? Would it help our chances, in a meaningful way if we're there in person to meet with these people and
Oh,
try to secure that
absolutely,
authorization?
absolutely.
And her response was yes, and it helps to have a director as well. So
Yes.
we really rely on Mia's expertise when it comes to planning these trips.
When, just to kind of go back to when this was first mentioned, I think that you and I were talking about a conversation with Mia, and we discussed that it was unusual for the district to send a delegation back 2 times in 1 year.
Right.
And so I think you asked me, first of all, would I like to go? And I had difficulty with that time frame, and anyway, Jeff was on the last trip, so I don't know, maybe we made a mistake. I was concerned about the cost of it, and I didn't want, to burden the district with an extra airfare and that stuff.
Yeah, so we have budgets for travel and conferences and things like that. So I think Director Davidson said he may not go to one of the Aqua conferences in place of an additional trip out here. So there's ways to still fit it within our existing budget. That's the hope.
But to kind of circle back to what Scott was saying, is if he has the time to go, I could certainly endorse his going along.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
looking at the schedule that you've got here, you've got 8 o'clock meetings on the 16th, so you'll have to fly on the 15th.
That's right.
Is that what you're planning to do? So 16th and 17th. Last meeting on the 17th is 3 p.m., so you could be on the 4 o'clock flight out of Ronald.
I didn't have this detailed of a,
Not to stay another night, come
budget
home.
is this big, he's telling me.
I didn't have this detailed of a budget. When I booked the flight, all I knew was Wednesday and Thursday. And as you can see on Wednesday, our last meeting starts at 4. So no, I booked a Friday morning flight. And I'll be traveling on Monday down to the Bay Area, fly out of the Bay Area. Monday's a holiday though, so.
Okay,
But
so
Tuesday will be
is.
travel
look
day.
at your schedule, Scott,
Oh,
and see.
oh,
Yeah,
if you can-
I did, I'll have to hustle.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, Scott. There's a couple of meetings that might be a challenge just because of the clearance for the Pentagon and the White House. But we can call Mia right after this meeting and see if we can still make that.
Yeah, I'll give you my pass for the Pentagon, if you want. Your hair's okay.
Okay, no,
But we
that
can
sounds
call Mia
good.
right after this if you'd like.
That sounds good, right.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
I want to move this along, but I can't help but think on this PSPS thing that there is, they stress so much with their public relations and, oh, this is all about public safety and everything. And I think that there's some penalty. I mean, there's some public penalty. You know, that,
I was under there, so
Yeah.
nobody could see.
yeah.
So there one viewpoint out there is obviously people are now up in arms about this.
Oh, yes.
And so one potential outcome here is that it prompts the legislature to work with PG&E on addressing some of those liability issues that PG&E has been asking the legislature for. And this puts additional pressure on that whole question. And so I guess the cynical view would be PG&E is doing this to extract more from the California legislature. I don't know enough of the inside baseball on that one to know one way or the other. I think from my perspective, if they can prevent even one wildfire by shutting it off, it's an inconvenience for all of us. But we've all been affected by wildfire. I would take that trade-off. But I would rather they find another way to solve that problem.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what the financial burden that has been forced upon PG&E through I don't know, they're being found at fault, billions, 20 billion, 30 billion, what?
Oh, I think 30 billion just for the Santa Rosa fires in 2017.
Okay, but when you consider, I mean, there was 34 counties, I think, affected by this. So virtually their whole distribution system or close to it. I mean, if every mom and pop grocery store, every service station, everybody that's dependent upon power to generate income, I mean, those losses could be
they're saying
equalized
in the billions
in a
of
day.
dollars.
I excuse me for being cynical, but I don't know, it just feels weird.
Well, and I think their point might be that if you spread those costs across all of those different sectors, then if we share that burden and not put it all on them, then it's easier to justify, or it's easier to pay for. But the flip side of that is, they're operating a system that is causing these fires. So where does the liability lie?
Well, and then Governor Newsom comes out with this grandiose idea of, that they have, PG&E has an obligation to upgrade their infrastructure so that this isn't necessary. Oh, okay. What, a week from Tuesday they're going to do that?
I heard
All the ground, I think
radio
next week,
on
all the lines are
Sunday or
over.
something.
Oh, good.
They had some really good people talking about the shut-offs. And this one guy said back in the day, before the environmentalists removed logging out of California, PG&E used to pay people just to come in and repair where the fire had happened, because there'd be just smaller fires. And it was economically advantageous for them to just do that. Well, now that those loggers are gone, and now these fires are happening, they're realizing, wow, we can't do it that way anymore. And, there's a lot of different pieces to it.
Well,
Yeah, for
and we're going to be seeing another piece of it, because when this is all over, we are going to be looking at a PG&E rate increase.
Well, we're also, we're paying for this right now.
Right,
I mean,
right.
the cost of having, how many field staff do we have on standby right now?
Uh-huh.
16 field staff, that's $1,600 a day, just for standby costs, not to mention the fuel, the generators, the preparation that we've done, the overtime that we'll incur. I mean, we're gonna pay a price for this immediately.
So may I ask just a couple
Go ahead.
of things? So when is Robbie's last day?
October 31st.
Really? And then, on the, it says in your corporate yard, you hope to have an RFP out for the building. So is that for finishing the design and stuff phase for you?
No, so we're trying to do that in-house.
Okay, so, and that's all I need to know. And what I would hope that you would do, I believe you're working with our engineering committee, is that correct?
That's
Yes.
great.
Okay. And then,
And we have sort of held their feet to the fire to bring
perfect, bring
that
it
back.
back to us.
Yes, yes.
And then the only other comment regarding the new director of administrative services, I'm disappointed that the board didn't weigh in prior to you making an offer to this person. I just feel that the board should have had some kind of input, and perhaps I don't understand the district's policy, and perhaps I need to read that. But is that something that anybody else would have liked to do as a?
Well, my
board?
2 cents on that is I think the board, we have 2 employees, we've recently confirmed that. We have 2 employees that we have any control over hiring and firing.
Who are the two?
And that would be this guy right here, our general manager, and our attorney. That represents the board. Other than that, everyone else is hired and fired by staff.
Well,
And I've never been
when we
in,
have our.
since 2011, since 2011, I've never even known, I mean, you know that there's positions posted, but I've never heard of getting any insight as they're narrowing it down to 2 or 3 or having any input.
I would, and at the finance meeting, you did give me an opportunity, but I'm just wondering, this is the finance person, correct? This administrative services? I see it as administrative services, but wasn't Jeff's title having a finance in there
Well,
somewhere?
the title is Director of Administrative Services, but their primary role is Finance Director.
So, seeing how we as a board member are probably first and foremost, other than setting policy, is responsible for finance. So why would we not want to be able to give a little bit of direction or input on who that person might be and what direction do we want that person going? I understand that our employee is the GM, and I get that, and I think that's exactly what we have to do. We don't get to tell him, don't want to tell him how to do his day-to-day stuff. But when you have a key employee in a position like that, and they're also part of the confidential bargaining unit, I think that we should revisit our policy, and we don't have to tell you which one, but I think we as a board should set direction as what type of person we're looking at to help best the district, along with the input of all of us. I just think it would have, I just would have liked to have seen that. So that's just a comment.
Well, if I could offer a little counterpoint, I understand your concern, but I think that the board should have the highest confidence in the general manager and his methodology, and I had my ear to the ground about the way it was being handled, and he consulted staff very appropriately, I think. I don't want to tell him who to hire.
Like I said, I don't think I wanted to tell them. I would just like to have them so he could know what all of our particular ideas were of what we thought in a particular person, or not the person per se, but what we expect that position as a board, what we would like to see in that
Okay,
position.
Well, then you
then
need to- you
does
need
that mean that whenever he has any kind of a vacancy over and, you know, whatever title that is, that he would come to us to ask us for our input?
I would think for the most critical positions that we have, and I think for us as a board, it's finance next to his. I think that would be okay. Water resources, he works with that person. I just think because the board's role, they have a fiduciary responsibility, and the person who is gonna fill that role, I think we should be very keenly aware of who that person is and what they're doing.
Okay, yeah.
You know what, you keep saying that to me, I get it, but the other thing I'm saying is, I think we shouldn't always be sitting way up here. I think we need to have more direction at times of what the board, it's the board that sets the policy and says, here's what we expect the district to be like, or this is the direction we want to go, and it's up to our employee.
But Cindy, when I say that, it's not my personal opinion. It's something that I learned in going to a workshop and knowing what the board of directors' role is and where you play, and I think especially in HR personnel matters. I think that's one of the most important parts of knowing what our role is, and that's not our role in doing interviews or managing at that level, or being involved in the interviewing. So I do think that this workshop that JPI is putting on it's specifically called Board Workshop, Know Your Role, and what do we get involved in, what shouldn't we be involved in, and
Like I said,
and that's where I've learned
I
that.
have been a GM, I am currently now.
So manager.
I've been the board clerk, and I'm currently now, and now I'm a board member. So I do understand, and I'm not asking for us to tell him how to do the job. I'm saying this is a key position for the district, and I believe the board should have had input. Not telling you which one to do, but maybe if you would have asked us, each one of us saying, well, what do you feel the most important thing is about this particular position? And I suppose it could happen after the fact now. But, what would you see as the most important qualification for somebody replacing Jeff, who did an excellent job and was here for a long time? You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, I'm good.
I would just say that I think I get that input from the board already. If I felt like I wasn't exactly sure what we needed in that position, then yeah, that's a conversation I need to have with the board. But I do feel like the board is already good about giving me direction on the direction we want the district to go in, and what we expect out of our staff. So I do feel like I had that input from the board.
Not one board member, based on the Brown Act, tells him what to do. It is no one board member can act independently. It is the board working together and coming up with that decision as a whole. So, talking to each one of us individual, I think, is nice and interesting. And you could get, our opinions of that, but doing it individually does not give you the direction as the board agrees on the whole.
Well, no, and I wasn't referring to individual discussion. I was just saying, I think in these meetings, I get the direction from the board as far from a policy perspective and from what we're expecting out of staff.
And, based on everybody's experience, you come from as you listed, you have been a GM, you have been an office manager, you have been da-da-da, all in finance. None of us have the experience and the depth that you have, Cindy. That's, and so that's why I don't feel that I would have been slighted.
I don't feel slighted. It just sometimes, I could look at, one agency in our area is so hands-on from a board, it's so off the wall is wrong. MSD used to be that same way. And sometimes I feel our board maybe is a little too far removed and should be a little bit more, just my opinion. We all can have one, but, you know.
We all go.
Anyhow, all right, no problem.
Okay.
Let's go home.
I'm gonna attend this. so-
Yes, so am I.
Okay, great.
Oh,
All of us
do we
can.
have to worry about,
No. No, it's
No,
training.
you're in education. You can all-
oh, okay.
Okay, this meeting is really dragging.
Don't we have closed session?
I think
Yeah.
so.
We do.
But-
Okay.
But the next item is board reports, so, Director Underhill, can you fill us in?
We start that end this time. You did,
Well, I did
Listen.
my report at the last.
Well, wait a
meeting.
minute. I have to insist. I'm the
He's
president.
running the meeting. God.
I want to start at the left end of the scale.
oh, good.
Hopefully she's not prepared and has nothing to report.
Okay.
After all that, she should say that.
No, I have notes here. Okay, and
Of course you do.
you did give me a status on Forest Meadow, so I'm very pleased. Okay, my next thing was, Peter and I were there from CCWD for the East Bay Mud Party Barbecue, and it was great to see
go there?
people we haven't seen in a year and to meet new people. And I'm just very, very thrilled to be able, and I mentioned this to Michael, I was approached by the Senior Community Affairs Representative for East Bay Mud, Mona Favorite Hill. Mona Favorite dash Hill.
That's her real name, favorite?
Yeah, that's her name. Anyway, she would like to look at collaborating in the scholarship process with us. You know, how we award our scholarships to our high school people, and I'm not sure how much this will be worth, but they would, it sounds like they would be willing to
To-
share, cost share
That
in a scholarship?
could be significant. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, so that's her. Okay, then I also picked up a card from Lena Tam, and we all know Lena, she's the Water Resources Planning Division, and she would like to have some further discussion about water being supplied to, is it Wallace?
Comanche.
Comanche. So here's her card. We had an in-depth speaker from University of California, Berkeley, Stephen Weissman. His title is lecturer, and he gave us an in-depth PSPS presentation, and I think it was just terrifically informative. And he's saying that PG&E grew so fast, and Vicki can vouch for what he said. PG&E just grew so fast, they didn't keep the safety thing in, as one of their primary focuses. So that was, that was really very good. So I think they had about 250, 300 people at the barbecue, and so it was great. It wasn't as hot as it normally is, how that first week in October gets out at Pardee, but it was great. And so had a good time. That's it?
Okay, now we can go with the others. The
Well,
other
I
end.
reported out at the last meeting regarding IRWM, so nothing updating for the most part. We will meet next week. But at that last meeting, we talked about getting information to share with our board members. And so we're gonna start doing this right here, and I'll send it down to you. This is coming from our moderator, and so they're gonna send these out like within days after our meeting, just the quick highlights. So I can either, one, bring it and make copies for you folks, or I could give it to Rebecca and ask her to put it in the board packet, so whatever you like. But it, because I take my notes, and sometimes you can't remember everything, but this was really helpful.
This came from Carolyn?
Carolyn Lott, yeah. She emailed it out to us, so you should have that too.
Yeah, I do.
But it might be nice for the others and just have it in here. Peter, I think it's it. Michael, you probably get it too. But I can either look at it and read it and report out verbally, or I can give it to Rebecca, or we get a handout for you folks, whatever you'd like. And
Or we just provide a handout here at the meeting would
I
be
could,
my
sure.
choice.
Do you want me to give it to Stacy?
No, I want that one back, because I have a note on the back.
Okay, all right.
I have to make sure I have the guys identify all of our pipes that are in the county right away. And then, the other thing, I had planned to go to that barbecue, but my husband had a dental emergency, so I was at the dentist office with him for 3.5 hours. So I'm sorry I couldn't go there, but I would have liked to.
Director Ratterman.
Well, as Michael pointed out, I was with him on Friday at, up in Grass Valley at NID, and they had a great presentations in the morning and a very nice tour. Scotts Flat Reservoir. And we had a tour there. They take care of they have recreation at NID. So they take care of the campground. They also showed us their power plant, how it's run. And very interesting. They talked about thinning of trees, and they're really, and one of the things about Nevada County, and I think a couple different people said this, there's a house under every tree, and there is, and you're in the middle of the forest, and you could see houses everywhere. I mean, all around this lake, and it does appear to be a place that is ripe for wildfires. But the thinning of the forest on both sides, well, all the way around the lake, they're really trying to protect our.
Which lake?
This is Scotts Flat Reservoir, up above Nevada City, Grass Valley, Nevada City, and up Highway 20 in the Sierra foothills up there. But beautiful place, and that was one of the things that they're prepared for. When a fire breaks out there, they're prepared for whether the wind is blowing down valley or up valley. They have made fire breaks that they're prepared for, and how to navigate the airplanes and where they're going to put the fire retardant in different circumstances. It was very interesting how well planned they seem to be up there, and very well should be. Mountain Counties has a couple programs coming up in November. I've talked a bunch of times about the November 14th tour and a reception at Murphy's Hotel that evening. A symposium at the Ridge up in Auburn is going to take place on Friday, November 8th. And everyone is certainly welcome. Like to see as many people there as possible. And next week, camera is next Wednesday, October 16th. We've already heard from Cindy that she can make it if one of us can't make it. If I do happen to be in Washington, D.C. that day, I will be telling.
So that both of you don't go?
We both, Bertha and I both go. Two members of each of the agencies and camera go.
And both of you can?
Both of us can, and the third one can't go. But right now I'm able to go next week. Bertha's able to go next week. You're able to go if I'm. You've already sent that to Kate, and thank you for doing that. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I am happy to report that it is possible to do some CCWD business from poolside in Mazatlan.
And you're happy about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was earning my pay down there. I got calls and I was making calls and stuff.
I will say it's harder to take you seriously when you start the phone call with that you're in the swimming pool with a swim up bar, pina colada. I'm trying to work with you there, but
It kind of gives you a visual.
But it worked, didn't it?
It worked.
Okay, all right. So my wife and I have had a very interesting October and September and October, actually. We've done a fair amount of traveling, but you notice I haven't missed any meetings. So,
Good job.
yeah, all right. I got back in after a 2-hour flight delay. We loaded onto an airplane in Phoenix last night and sat on it for an hour and a half while they were ostensibly fixing something, and I kept telling Gloria, this plane's not going to get off the ground. So finally, after an hour and a half, they said, we're going to deplane and go to another terminal.
that's the worst.
So anyway, we got in pretty late last night, but I'm not complaining. It was good. Okay, so that's about all I have to report, other than we have next board meetings are scheduled for October the 23rd, which will be another 1 p.m. meeting, but then we go to the Bertha schedule on November 13th, and we'll be meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning.
The Bertha doctrine, or underhill doctrine.
I'm looking at the November 13th meeting. I won't be able to be here. I'll be in at that CSD board clerk conference.
Okay. Okay, so do we actually have a closed session today, Michael? Okay. All right, well, this is a conference with legal counsel, potential litigation in Government Code 54956.9D for one case, and we shall return to report if we have action or if we don't have action. So anyway, this portion of the meeting is concluded.